Hi, everyone.
Hello. In the chapter, The Challenge of Christian Freedom, page 638 of In Search of Christian Freedom, Ray is discussing whether or not we can be saved by relationship with an organization. He says that organizational affiliation cannot gain us a favorable judgment is also seen in that we are judged not by our adherence to organizational rules and directives, but by the law of freedom. That's James 2 verse 12 in the Jerusalem Bible. That law of freedom is the royal law, the supreme law, the sovereign law, and it is the law of love. We need to ask ourselves continually whether what we do, the very attitudes we take, are genuinely founded in love.
If we adopt a self-righteous attitude based on performance of specified activities routinely carried out week by week, or view ourselves as superior to all those outside our particular religious community on the basis of certain things we abstain from, how can we feel we are different from the Pharisee of Jesus' parable in his self-confidence based on his regularity of performing acts set out in the law? And he's referring to Luke 18, the Pharisee and the publican at prayer. Jesus did not condemn the man's acts, nor deprecate his abstention from various wrongs. What he condemned was his underlying attitude, his self-appointed spirit, self-approving spirit, an unloving viewpoint of others, which robbed his performance of any value. Because that attitude was typical of Pharisees, Jesus told his disciples that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. The scribes and the Pharisees of that time are no longer with us, but the legalistic and exclusive attitude typifying them is, and it is incompatible with love of neighbor.
It is when we become free from an environment that induces and fosters such an attitude, free from a system that seeks to regulate and dominate and systematize our activities in service to God, while making us feel that our dutifully submitting to all this makes us something special, superior to others not so doing, it is then that we are faced with the true challenge of Christianity. We're now free to let our heart and our personal faith motivate us. How deep does our love go? What does it move us to do? How far does our interest in others extend, our concern to be of benefit, help, and service to them? To what extent has the life lived by God's Son touched our hearts, lifted us up, expanded our outlook, deepened our appreciation, extended our thinking? The Apostles' prayer is, and this is from Ephesians 3:17-19, that through faith Christ may dwell in your hearts in love, with deep roots and firm foundations. May you be strong to grasp with all God's people what is the breadth and length and height and depth of the love of Christ, and to know it, though it is beyond knowledge, so you may attain in fullness of being the fullness of God Himself. That's the New English Bible.
Whether we wish it or not, we all exercise influence, for good or for bad, upon others. Not just what we say and do in our daily life, but also the spirit in which we say and do things, the way in which we show what matters to us, what values guide us, what concerns and goals impel us. All this is a constant exercise of influence. If, as the writer of Ecclesiastes puts it, one sinner can destroy much good, it is also true that one person with a right spirit can bring great benefit to those around him or her. Though seemingly small, that influence can be like a pebble that drops in the water and produces rippling circles that continually widen out. Its immediate effects necessarily reach those nearest us, a mate, children, parents, relatives, friends. Both through them and through our contacts beyond our family circle and friendships. That influence extends outward and in ways we may not realize.
Our not being part of something big, part of some religious movement that gives visible evidence of size and power, should not lessen our faith, nor make us feel too small, too weak to accomplish anything of genuine worth in our life. Having some visible, notable impact on the world scene is not the criterion for determining the value of one's faith or deeds of faith, even as it is not proof of a religion's belief system being right. Christian influence can be of humble, modest nature, working quietly like the yeast in a loaf, yet accomplishing genuine good, though without fanfare and acclaim. Again, our human nature may prefer that which manifests apparent power and strength from the human standpoint, but faith does not require that.
According to God's Son, we serve as a light for people by our deeds, deeds that induce praise of our Father. Those deeds must be not the product of external pressures or the result of programming, but deeds that are the product of our own minds and hearts, and that show that we have been enlightened by the good news, that it fills our lives, gives evidence of having changed our lives. Mere talking during certain periods in a programmed preaching work, using prescribed subjects and expressions set out for us in religious publications, cannot begin to fulfill this commission. As Jesus' disciples, John expressed it, love must not be a matter of words or talk. It must be genuine and show itself in action. Only through reflecting the enlightening effect of the good news by what we are and do throughout our lives, every day and all day long, can we be as a light to the world.
And Ray has a footnote about the works that are mentioned and assumed to be works in the New Testament, as opposed to the impression you have when you're a witness of what constitutes the works of a Christian in this world. The footnote reads, on Matthew 5:14-16, the Greek term erga is rendered as works in some translations, deeds in others, but in neither case does it convey the idea of participation in some kind of organized activity, both the preceding and succeeding context showing instead that Jesus was speaking of what those listening to him would do in their daily life and in their everyday dealings with others. In other words, the Jewish background would determine what works would be, what this word works would pertain to. So it had to do with everyday deeds and actions, not with some evangelism that Jews were participating in. And then that was the same with the disciples in the first century. If you can read through all of the 13 epistles of Paul and James and John and Peter, you find the same pattern. Nowhere do they instruct us to perform evangelism as a matter of showing our dedication to God. We're going to link to a video we did on the Pharisee and the tax collector, Luke 18, verses 9-14, where you get a glimpse into the heart of God. Only one of those two men who went up to pray at the temple went away declared righteous.
Yeah, and we might be surprised which one.
Next time Ray deals with coping with uncertainty.